Hi, Music 189ers. Dr. Hoover here. So I just read through your discussion of Felicia Mayakawa's article on DJing and turntablature notation. And I was really excited to read the original answers to the questions that students gave, as well as the responses that you gave one another. I thought that the discussion that unfolded required me to respond to you guys all at once instead of responding individually. So under the Module 4 wrap-up, you will see a document wherein I have summarized the primary points that students were making in relation to notation, the virtuosity of DJing, and comparing DJs and producers to rappers today. So let's begin with the first question. I asked about your general thoughts on notation. Is it good or bad for an art form, specifically DJing? Is it necessary? So in the yay column, it seemed like for almost everybody who originally answered the questions, you provided basically the pros and cons of notation. So that was a really balanced way of understanding or evaluating the art form. So as far as pros go, you said that notation records the creation of new art forms, so that we are able to historicize that. I know historians such as myself, we sometimes rely on notation. But what I want to highlight is that with the advent of recording technologies, we have other ways of recording these things. So in my opinion, sometimes notation really isn't as important as hearing different recordings of one piece. So you can have a notated piece, but different performances of that piece that illuminate differences in expression, which are pretty fascinating. You said it allows an ability for others to recreate and then actually build off of that, like little Legos. It also offers, which is this part of a system of communication between artists. So you can have a basic level of notation that then allows others to experiment with it and talk to one another. So an artist's forum, so to speak. It's also a true reflection of what a composer intended. But once again, you could also have an original composer performer perform that and record that, because usually composers are also performers of some sort. The next question that I asked you about was in relation to our topic for the week, which was music and virtuosity. So is DJing virtuosic? There was an overwhelming response in the yes direction, although there were a few of you who did not believe it was virtuosic, although you did say that DJing was certainly a valid art form. It just wasn't the same level as perhaps some of the other virtuosos we discussed in the Module 4 unit. So for those of you who said yes, you said it's intricate composition with or without notation. It is a very high level art of transcription. It allows for the dissemination of music. The allows for dissemination of music might be more so for the notation. It is an economic way to teach music to others. So DJing allows you to communicate. DJs have an unbelievable ears and aural capabilities that are intrinsic to other musicians, and sometimes not intrinsic to musicians. Sometimes aural, our sight singing and dictation classes for musicians can be quite challenging. Things are not made up on the fly, so there is this thought process behind the music, but then again, there's also a very intricate layer of improvisation. I'll say it eventually. Unbelievable level of multitasking. If anyone could do it, then the profession of DJing wouldn't exist. The turntable is an instrument, so why not? Why can't we have virtuosos on this instrument? If notated, true virtuosos are able to work outside of a notated box, so to speak. So notation makes it possible to see when composers or performers go against the grain and act virtuosically, and allows for the creation of unique styles. For those of you who were not so keen on DJs as being considered virtuosos, you said that they rely heavily on past sounds, and that this just can't be put on the same plane as virtuosos who are creating on traditional instruments. They're just different skill sets. So it's like comparing apples to oranges. So we would maybe have to have a different term for virtuosity in relation to DJing. Then I asked you in that same I asked you about DJing and virtuosity. I also wanted you to speak on this legitimization of the art form. Is notation needed for that? And most of you said that the concerto orchestra does not legitimize the art form. And then I just wanted to throw out there, why does a popular genre need to even take on the veil of a classical art music genre to be legitimate? Many art forms and or genres that we didn't even get to discuss in Music 189 were the popular genres of the day. So who's not to say that DJing and certain hip hop music might not become art music in 200 years. You said notation is not needed to be a virtuosic DJ, which underlines this idea of improvisation. Those of you who could see it as a good thing, it could legitimize this for more traditionally minded listeners. And by performing the concerto, the turntable transforms into an instrument that may be able to stand the test of time. And this permanence is definitely a characteristic of art music. So it seems that popular music is something of the here and now, and then once it's historicized, however that comes to be, means that it stands the test of time. So maybe notation does play a role in that. Okay, the last question I asked was really probing at this idea of producers and DJs versus rappers. And a lot of you were like, yeah, DJs should be recognized as creators and innovators. And some of you even pointed out that there is a rise. There's a rise of DJs and DJ culture in even the top 40 charts. And also there are famous rappers who maybe perhaps now are known as rappers, but were originally producers or DJs, such as Kanye West for Jay-Z and Pharrell for many, many artists in the early 2000s. For me, as a lover of hip hop, there's nothing like a good old Pharrell beat or a Timbaland beat as well. And then some of you were also saying, of course, that rappers are also virtuosic and that they're poets, but not all poets are virtuosos, and thus not all rappers are virtuosic. And I think that would be the same for DJing as well. And all in all, I think the sense that many of you were giving was that things need to be considered as a working whole, which is not so easy to do in terms of the awards that are given out, and not just given out, but televised. If you think about all of the different awards that are given out during the Grammys, what do we actually see on television? It's the main artists, not necessarily those producers and DJs, which are also who are also getting awards. Same thing with any type of film, something in the film industry, television industry. We only get to see like the hit songs win their awards, and sometimes a soundtrack, not even sometimes a soundtrack. So it's very interesting to think about the transparency of the music business and the film industry and the television industry in relation to music. So I'm glad that some of you highlighted that as well. If you have any questions, let me know. I just thought I would summarize this for those of you who may have responded to the forum earlier in the week rather than later in the week, so that you could see what everybody was saying. I liked that you all were agreeing with one another, but I also liked those of you who challenged one another in a very respectful manner. You guys are a great group. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.